The Chosen, Mitch Albom's escape from Haiti, and disrupting the Ivy Leagues for Jesus. That and more coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines each week to bring you interviews with pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable news figures. On today's Newsmakers, we begin with a big news story about The Chosen, the popular show about Jesus and the New Testament. Now, the head of the Come and See Foundation, that's an organization working to bring The Chosen to 1 billion people across the globe. He is going to join us to talk about season 4 of the show and how it is going into prisons and churches. Lots to unpack there. Let's welcome Stan Jantz to Newsmakers. So as we get started here, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the work of Come and See.
Well, Come and See is a nonprofit, and we were stood up to able to support The Chosen. Actually, our vision is to reach 1 billion people with the authentic Jesus, help people experience him. And we think the best way to do that is through The Chosen. So we've come alongside The Chosen. We have 3, kind of we call them pillars. And one is to ensure that all 7 seasons get made. And number 2 is the translation piece, translate every episode of every season into 600 languages, which is a huge task, never been done before at that scale. And then 3 is to partner with global ministries in order to take The Chosen to the farthest places of the world, to partner with churches and organizations for that. So, and that takes, all that is what we're for, is to raise money from people. And we're so grateful for the outpouring, of people who are coming alongside Come and See. And we think we're just getting started. So that's what we do. And it's been exciting. And of course, as the seasons keep rolling out, there's more stuff to discover.
Obviously, season 4 has been in theaters and it's come in batches. People have been able to go and see. It will eventually make its way to streaming. But before it makes its way to streaming, it's going to be at churches and in prisons. Let's talk about the prison piece here. How did this come about?
Well, it came about through a partnership with Prison Fellowship. And Heather Rice-Minas, who's the CEO of Prison Fellowship, we work together to really provide, and they have a network called Floodlight. They have a network of 300 prisons where they can show this and have not just access permission, but actually to show it in groups. What's really great, and there are some prisons where they can watch on iPads. It's approved and they can watch just that content. But where they can watch it in community, they're seeing tremendous results. And what we're seeing is, and Heather has said for them, it's giving fresh insight into Jesus' implausible selection of the least, the last, and the lost as leaders of the greatest spiritual awakening the world's ever known. So if you're incarcerated, you're among the least, last, and lost. And so what she's saying is they can see this story. And Jesus talked about, if you visit those in prison, you have visited me. Right. So this beautiful connection, and we all know the great work Prison Fellowship has done. And so we're seeing that this is a tool that they're using to engage these inmates. And then as chaplains, then take them through that discipleship journey. And it's just been, we're thrilled. And right now is season 4 is available. And there's a website. And if churches are listening, pastors or even lay people want to get your church involved, it's just comeandsee.net/church. And you'll see the connection there for churches. And also Prison Fellowship, if you're interested in prison ministry, has a way to sign up for that. There's no cost. We do ask you to get licensed and that you don't charge for it. So we want tickets going out either, from churches or prisons, and it's going to be free because we're offering it free. And that's one of our goals too, is to keep this show free for all, that people can watch it and not have to pay for it.
What is your hope, at the end of the day, flash forward, let's say 6 months, and the prison system, many of them have had a chance to, maybe the inmates there watch season 4. What is your hope for the impact of The Chosen on those prisoners?
Well, and for every prisoner, there's a family, right? There are people that are involved with that person. And I think that not just what happens in the prison and with that individual, but then it can also reverberate through the communities that they're a part of or have been a part of. And I think that healing that can take place too, of maybe there's been resentment or confusion or whatever kind of happens when someone is incarcerated. And yet this healing that can take place. And again, because it's going to the least, to the lost, to the last, if you will, I think it gives hope. And I think, Billy, I don't know about you, but I think we're in an age right now, a time of great anxiety and just kind of stress that people are feeling. And whether you're behind bars or out in the world, it's just tough right now. And I think a lot of that is fed by, we can see everything on social media. We see it all, everything that's going on in every part of the world. But here's a show that brings the true story of hope. And guess what? Back in that first century, as those disciples were walking around, there was pressure, there was stress, there was an oppressive government, there was opposition. And we see how Jesus handled that and the stress that he had. Season 3 we were talking about earlier is kind of the theme of season 3 of The Chosen was, come to me, all you who are labor and heavy laden, I'll give you rest. Season 4 is Jesus bearing his own burdens as the opposition grows and as things start to happen. And yet at the same time, the hope just shines through in such a beautiful way. I'm going to give a spoiler alert for season 4, and that is the raising of Lazarus from the dead. What an amazing, joyful miracle. And yet we know from Scripture that intensified the opposition. Here you have somebody doing something. They didn't like what he was doing anyway. So now he raises this pretty well-known person from the dead. He starts walking around. They're not crazy about that. In fact, if you read Scripture, it says that's when they decided from that point forward that he had to be stopped. And to the point that he had to be put to death. So you see that joy mixed with that tension and then opposition that comes in, and you'll see that in season 4. So I'm just kind of setting you up, a little spoiler alert, but I think people kind of knew this was coming in season 4, which is the one we're talking about, available for churches and prisons.
Well, I so appreciate you coming on today, joining us and breaking it all down for us. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Billy. Appreciate it. God bless.
You can go to comeandseefoundation.org for more on The Chosen. And after the break, our next guest is beloved author Mitch Albom, who will be sharing a terrifying ordeal he faced in Haiti. We'll be back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Our next guest is author Mitch Albom. He was recently among the Americans forced to flee from Haiti in the dead of night after the nation descended into sheer chaos. Let's welcome Mitch to Newsmakers. Mitch, appreciate you joining me. I know it has been an incredibly hectic week. You were in Haiti visiting the orphanage that you run, Have Faith Haiti, and chaos obviously broke out in Haiti. Take us through when you first realized there was a very real and legitimate problem.
Well, I go to Haiti every month and have for the last 14 years since I've been operating this orphanage, which I started right after the earthquake. So I'm somewhat used to the chaos in Haiti. We were even there during the assassination of the president, Jovenel Moïse, and the country shut down then, and it became very violent. So that's not such news to me, but with this trip, we had brought with us, along with my wife, who goes with me all the time, we brought 8 volunteers with us, and many of them had never been to Haiti before. One of them had never been out of the country before. And right after we got there, the gang violence surged. They broke into a very big prison and released thousands of very dangerous criminals. The airports were immediately shut down, taken over by the gangs. The ports were taken over by the gangs. The roads were owned by the gangs. The borders were shut. So very quickly, all options for leaving disappeared. And I began to think we're not going to be able to get out of here. And of course, the volunteers didn't really sign up for that when they decided to come help in an orphanage. And so, we tried the normal routes of the embassy and American contacts. Hey, are you going to be able to help us? And we basically got stonewalled and just told, well, there's nothing we can do. Just shelter in place. Are you taking bullets? And I said, well, if we're taking bullets, why are you telling us to shelter in place? So there wasn't any help coming from them. And then we read that they evacuated. And so it was pretty clear that if we were going to find a way out, we were going to have to do it independently. And we began to explore those options.
How did you, what was going through your heart and your mind as you're trying to explore those options? There's no way out. This is very different from the things you experienced in the past. What was sort of going through your mind during that?
Well, first of all, I was worried about our kids and not so much us, because what was happening was really going to affect them short-term and long-term. So what we spent our time doing was stockpiling food, stockpiling fuel, stockpiling water, getting cash if we could get to a bank, because we know, when the country shuts down, if the gangs take over the terminals for fuel, you can't get any gas. Suddenly you can't buy food because the markets are closed. So we always know how to spring into that kind of mode very quickly and double up our security forces and things like that. So while we were doing that, I was thinking, okay, who do I know that can get us out of here? And that's not something in 14 years that I've had to face in terms of, trying to arrange a helicopter or some kind of, trip to the water and getting on a boat in the middle of the night. And so we began to make calls to people. And to be honest, we had 3 failed attempts before the one that successfully worked. One of them left us on a hilltop in the middle of an area of Haiti when the sun came up, and a helicopter was supposed to come and pick us up, and it never came. And there were 10 of us just standing on a hill with our little bags waiting. And then about an hour later, we found out that it wasn't able to come because they were shooting, in the area. And so we had to scurry back to the cars and race back to the orphanage. But then we were contacted by Corey Mills, who's a U.S. congressman, and Lisa McClain, who's also a congressperson, neither one of which were acting on behalf of the government, but in a private fashion. And they said, we've heard what's happened to you. We want to come get you out.
Yeah, take us through, because, in reading and seeing some of what you've described, it seems unimaginable what you guys had to do. And you ended up in a very small space, too, all 10 of you. So take us through those events.
Well, you have to imagine that this is 10 people now, most of whom have not gone through anything like this in their life. They're mentally exhausted because of these stops and starts. They don't know when they're going to see their families. And now I'm saying to them, a helicopter is going to come in the middle of the night and get us out under darkness. It's not what they signed up for, obviously. And we were waiting for this helicopter to come at 3 o'clock in the morning at a different location than we had the night before. And I'm not going to share that with you. And we were too tired to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, everybody was wiped out. And so we were in these chairs and on the floor, and we just said, well, we'll just set our alarms for 2 o'clock and we'll get up at 2 o'clock. And we had 1 bag apiece, and we'll just be ready to go at 3 o'clock. And at about 5 to 2, I lay my head down. It was the first time I slept in 2 days. And I must have been so asleep that my wife nudged me. She said, I think your phone's binging. Your phone is binging. And I looked over, and it was 5 to 2. So my alarm hadn't gone off, but there were bings on my text message. And the last one said, are you getting these messages? Exclamation point, exclamation point. And I looked, and there had been 5 messages before that said, we have to come earlier. You have to go now.
Oh, wow.
30 minutes out, 20 minutes out, 15 minutes out. And I did the math, and we were like 6 minutes away. And so we had to wake up everybody in the pitch dark. And then my thing bings again. It says no bags, just passports. Had to change aircraft. So we said, you can't take your bags, leave your bags. And everyone's like, where? I have to find my passport. And, everything had to happen in a couple of minutes. And then we ran outside and flashed the lights so that they could see where we were. And just like in one of those movies, you see a light coming out of the sky, you hear, bah, 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 bah. And next thing you know, there's a thing on the ground. Guy jumps out. I think it was Corey Mills, and said, let's go, let's go, let's go. And everybody runs in. And we thought, they told us it was a 12-person helicopter. They had 4 seats in it. And so there was no place to sit down or take us. We just,
wow.
And we just jumped in on top of one another, and next one on top of the next one. It was like a big human ball. And I think it turned out to be 67 seconds from the time that the plane came down to when the door closed and we lifted up again, the helicopter rather. And then, of course, that's when you hold your breath, because you don't want anybody shooting at you from the ground. But very quickly we were up in the air. There were no shots. And then we headed out, and they said to us, don't make any noise and don't turn on your phones until we're out of Haitian airspace. And about 20, 25 minutes later, they said, okay, you're out of Haitian airspace. And all the people who were with us kind of clapped and said, yeah, but for my wife and I, it was kind of a gut punch, because it was the reality that we were out of Haiti and our kids were still there. And so I'm happy to be home, but I'm kind of heartbroken to be away from our kids.
Mitch, I appreciate you and all you do, and just, your whole story, and you joining us during such a chaotic week. Thank you for your time today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for your interest and your prayers.
Please continue to pray for Haiti and for Mitch's orphanage and all the children there. Up next, we'll talk with a man on a mission to bring Jesus to the Ivy Leagues. This is Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. For our final segment, we are sitting down with Matt Bennett. Matt is the founder of Christian Union. This is an organization on a mission to spread the gospel to Ivy League students across America. He's here to talk about his new effort to disrupt campus culture by introducing students to Christ. Let's welcome Matt to Newsmakers. So Christian Union is launching an 8-week campaign to reach Ivy League campuses for Christ. This sounds like a pretty powerful endeavor. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, glad to. We're really excited about getting the message out. It's through digital media, but other means as well. And we want the students at these schools, we're mostly focusing on undergraduates, to hear the gospel message, know how to know the Lord, know who he is. It's just an introduction for those who don't know much, but you can say a fair amount on social media, and we're really excited about it.
Yeah, you know, this idea of disrupting, and I love that word, disrupting the climate on these campuses. You know, you mentioned it's through social media. What does that look like? You know, a successful disruption of the climate there?
Well, we're using a bunch of different platforms for social media, Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and others to get the message out. So you can focus on certain audiences with digital media. And so we're focusing on the students here on these campuses and bringing different messages about who Jesus is. A lot of people don't know much about him, or what they've learned about him may not be quite accurate. So we want to bring the message, changes lives to them just like everywhere else.
Well, let's talk about the Ivy League campuses in general, because that's where your focus is here. You know, we can talk about all colleges. And in fact, you know, I think this is important. When you look at surveys of beliefs of professors on these campuses, it does back that at the very least, they don't have a personal connection to faith, many of them, to certain values, maybe even politically, there's an imbalance, right? So we see these things, but when it comes to the Ivy League, why that specific focus for this campaign?
Well, our focus is a ministry. We're at the Ivy League schools, Brown, Cornell, Penn, Harvard, Yale, these, as well as Stanford, which is technically not Ivy League. But our focus is very academically intense and secular, influential universities. And there is a certain ethos at these schools. There's a lot of similarity among them. You have very high-performing students, ambitious students, smart students who go there. And these folks, they need to hear about the gospel like everyone else. And Jesus himself, he ministered to the downtrodden, but he also ministered to the most powerful people. He did the full spectrum. And what's shocking is that in this audience, you have fewer practicing Christians than you do, say, for like in mainland China or a lot of other places that we consider unreached. This is an unreached people group. And so it's important for these folks in and among themselves that they have the chance to know the Lord. But it's also important for the sake of the nation, because a lot of the nation's most influential leaders go to the top, say, 1% of schools in the country. A huge number go, something almost like 2/3 of the nation's most influential leaders in business and government, media, education. And so for the sake of the rest of us, these folks need to know the Lord.
Well, you know, we've been watching these revivals unfold, these mini revivals unfold all over the country. And there are arguments some are making that there's a broader revival maybe underway, and that discussion and debate can be had. But we know that there are amazing things happening for the gospel. And here you are. How incredible would it be to see revivals on these Ivy League campuses happening? I mean, it'd be pretty amazing to watch.
Yeah, it'd be really, really amazing. And that's a subject I've studied a lot over the years. And you know, revivals are always preceded by Christians radically seeking God and praying, fasting, repenting of sins. And we don't see that happening in wide measure across the U.S. and haven't for many years. You might have it at one university for a limited period of time for a couple of years, but then that's it. Now, we're thankful for everything that happens, for every person that comes to faith in Christ, every prayer meeting that's had. That's wonderful. But you look at the international church, and you guys know this very well, and reporting all over the world, you see great moves of God, and they just have an amazing culture of prayer, fasting, repentance that we've lost in the U.S. We used to have it in the United States, but we got to revive that.
Now, just before we go, I'd love to hear a little bit about Christian Union, just the history and why it was created.
Well, by the grace of God, I started it 20 years ago, and I was with Campus Crusade before that and loved it, had a great experience with them. But noticed that being able to target strategies, materials towards this audience really, really helps. So we want to see these campuses radically impacted and changed, and excited to come with a sort of augmented approach. Our Bible studies, our outreach methods, and different things are more suitable, in my mind, to this audience. And we want Jesus Christ to be known by everybody. We want every student to have a chance to be developed as a Christian leader. We hire a lot of people to minister who have seminary degrees or former pastors or something like that, so their deepest questions can be addressed and answered in every way. These students are very intellectual, and they need to get those questions addressed, or else they're only halfway in or partially in. A lot of them, even if there are Christians coming into these schools, before they come in, a lot of times they weren't encouraged to get their questions answered. Maybe they even intimidated their youth group leader or something like that. And so they're unsure about the faith. But we want to say, hey, all these questions are legit. We're going to do our best to help you address all of these, and so that you get a rock solid, because a lot come in as Christians, but they lose the faith.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, all the work you're doing at Christian Union, and look forward to seeing how this campaign shakes out. Thanks for your time today.
Hey, thank you so much. Really appreciate being on.
You can find out more about Christian Union at christianunion.org. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. That's all for Newsmakers. Thank you for watching, and be sure to head over to the CBN News YouTube channel. That's where you will find the full interviews that you saw on today's episode. And we want you to also check out our new Daily Newsmakers podcast. It's Monday through Friday. We feature one full interview every single day. You can subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll see you back here for another episode of Newsmakers next week.